Welcome to the Awesemo NASCAR DFS strategy show as we are here to break down Sunday's Goodyear 400. Good to have a normal name race here to talk about here, as I can see Phil nodding his head here about Noah Bushy McBush 400 as we saw last week. Of course, we'll be breaking down this race for you here on Sunday. Of course, be sure to line up those questions right there, whether it's in our premium Slack channel or also on YouTube. We'll get through it as we do go forward with this show. But Phil, first off, let's take a look back to last week. First off, what is kind of your take on what we saw last week?
I mean, I could complain about a lot of things, but in the grand scheme of things, does NASCAR really care about my opinion? And in the grand scheme of things, does NASCAR really care about anybody's opinion outside of their own brain trust there in Charlotte? I mean, it's easy to get lost in the weeds of what would be a Reddit conspiracy theory, but we always have these situations, and they seem to pop up about once every couple of months, where it blatantly feels like NASCAR is messing around with the final sequences of a race, and they will throw a random caution just to bunch the field back up and make the final 20, 30 laps a bit more competitive. And that yellow flag, because of Tyler Reddick's errant tire on pit road, felt exactly like that. And I mean, it left everybody wondering, okay, if that tire dictated this yellow flag, why didn't it dictate it 15 laps ago when the original tire found its way across pit road and was sitting in the grass? So, I mean, if you're going to call the yellow flag for this situation here after everybody's come down pit road, why didn't you do it earlier? And I mean, it led to various other cautions simply because the field was bunched back up together. It really impacted the final standings in DFS that day. Because I mean, before that caution, there was about a 60 to a 70 way tie up top for everybody with the top lineup, just basically playing the chalk. The chalk was coming through depending on what you were doing. And then slowly but surely, the standings started to change. You had Denny Hamlin and his issue trying to block. You had, I mean, Joey Logano somehow found his way into the top 5 after being about a 15th through 20th place driver for the majority of that race. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, oh dear God, I have gotten off of all of this Joey Logano, and now hook or by crook, Logano's in the top 5. He's going to have all this place differential. And if you didn't just jam in all 3 of Logano, Larson, and Hamlin, you're not going to win anything. And of course, I was keeping track of what Anthony Alfredo was doing, and that ended up just kind of being a wash. He scored 18.5 points, so he didn't kill you, but he didn't save your day. But I mean, I'd like to take something away from last week, but I feel like the last 30 laps were just so random and all over the place that there's really nothing to glean, especially now that we are going to Darlington, a race that's going to be utilizing the 750 horsepower short track package, when every other race that we've had since NASCAR has gone to this split between a high horsepower, low downforce, low horsepower, high downforce package, Darlington's always ran the same package that the 1.5 2 mile tracks have run. And now we're transitioning to the short track package for whatever reason.
Of course, we're going to talk about that here in a moment. Of course, if for whatever reason you're unable to watch us on YouTube, you can't catch this show a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com. You can check out the links and be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on any of our podcast channels to be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every week, and reviews will be eligible to win up to 1 year. So be sure to check out that over there, awesemo.com. Right at the top of the screen, you'll see the Awesemo Podcast Network, and be sure to leave that rating and review. But of course, when we look at this race here, the Goodyear 400, you wrote about it this week on awesemo.com, is about this race being at the 750 horsepower package as opposed to the 550. Talk a little bit about how that changes your thought process in terms of roster construction.
Right. Whenever we have a race at a 550 horsepower package race, so we're talking about generally 267 to 325 laps. It tends to lend itself to being more of a balanced build, simply because smaller teams generally have I want to say they would have a competitive advantage, but they don't have so much of a competitive disadvantage to the more well-funded teams as they do in the 750 horsepower package. And then there's the whole thing with the amount of laps that, yeah, we're going to have dominators, but they're not going to lead so many laps. They're not going to be lapping these punt plays so many times that it's going to make it really tough for for these punt plays to really be anything feasible that we're wanting to chase after. So how does that transition our thoughts when we're taking a race that's 293 laps, I believe, yeah, fewer than 300 laps, and we're doing the 750 horsepower package? I think just on the ground level, as for DFS, this is still going to be mainly a 2 dominator build, maybe work it up to 3 just because of the laps. But this does worry me, because we're using the 750 horsepower package, about just how viable these mid to lower tier teams are going to be, like Roush, like JTG Doherty, like Chip Ganassi, Front Row Motorsports, especially Richard Petty. I mean, Eric Jones is hands off probably until we get to Daytona in August. These lower funded teams, they don't perform nearly as well as they do in the 550 horsepower package. So it really changes how I'm looking at these teams. You're probably going to have to find your way to somebody priced under $6,000 this week, because of how well priced our main dominator options are. But I really think in the 7K, 6K, and also in the 5K range, when I'm looking at these lower to mid-tier teams, it has me questioning just what exactly is their upside.
Mention this question that we got already in the YouTube chat from JJT, saying, who is the drivers that are good in the 750 horsepower package at high tire wear tracks?
Just in general, when we're talking about the 750 horsepower package, what we've seen so far this year is Joe Gibbs. It's been Hamlin. It's been Truex. You can sprinkle in a little bit of Christopher Bell. And we've seen some off weeks and some on weeks from the Penske stable, but it's really been a weird split when it comes to the 550 horsepower package. It feels like we've been able to lean on Brad Keselowski a little bit more, but when it comes to the 750 horsepower package, then we find ourselves looking at Joey Logano a bit more. And then you throw in the Hendrick guys who continue to have speed, but they're not really being a factor towards the end of the race. The main thing to remember, and I believe that this was brought up in the Positive Regression pod a few weeks ago when they were previewing Richmond. When you look at the top 8 teams in terms of speed in this package, it's the top tier teams. It's the 4 Hendrick drivers, it's the top 3 Joe Gibbs drivers, and it's your 2 Penske drivers. So I mean, the guys that you would expect to be up there are the drivers, the teams with the most funding.
You mentioned a moment ago about this being a 2 dominator build, but by the way, I appreciate everyone that's in here on a Friday night. Typically we are here on Saturdays, but a little special Friday night show for you. Of course, if you're not subscribed, also be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know a new show is live here on the channel. Of course, be sure to give us a thumbs up. We really do appreciate that. We got a ton of great programming for you each and every day over here at Awesemo.com. But when we talk about, you'd mentioned about 2 dominator build, maybe a 3 dominator build. When we're talking about a 3 dominator build, are you trying to potentially jam in all those Joe Gibbs racers?
I think you can, and it's really only because of Christopher Bell finding himself priced down this week. So I mean, it's a scenario like we were looking at when it came to Richmond, where we really liked Hamlin, we really liked Truex, and we were kind of considering Christopher Bell. He was cheaper that week. He was in the upper 7K range, but this week Christopher Bell still finds himself below 9K with place differential to boot. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be a week that I probably once again am returning to these Joe Gibbs drivers because of how they've done in the 750 horsepower package this year. Plus, I'm trying to find this synthesis of past Darlington races with the 750 horsepower package this year, and everything I keep coming back to says play Joe Gibbs.
Of course, we'll talk about some of the place differentials when we go through the tiers. Of course, today over Awesemo.com, our free premium data and tools includes NBA ownership projections, MLB player rankings, NHL player projections, and MMA fighter projections. Of course, myself and Pete will be live tomorrow afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern time for UFC Live Before Lock. Also, you can catch me on Awesemo on Sunday for NBA Live Before Lock. But let's get right into those tier number 1 drivers. So these will be the drivers that are 10K and above over on DraftKings, and we have got 5 of them this week. We got Kyle Larson starting 14th, Joey Logano starting 12th, Denny Hamlin starting 7th, Martin Truex Jr. starting 4th, and Brad Keselowski on the pole. Where do you want to start here with these 5 drivers?
Let's start with Larson. I wrote in today's betting preview for the Goodyear 400 that Larson has become a trend, and this is what you're going to have to look to. That if you have any hope of betting Larson in the future, it doesn't matter what track it is, you've got to jump on him early. He started off the week at plus 550 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Now he sits at plus 400. And that has been a trend ever since, I believe, his performance at Homestead. It's that he starts off with a respectable number that you can get behind. But then as the week goes on, that number keeps getting shaved, and it keeps getting shaved and shaved until either he's the top outright favorite or he's sitting at second. He already opened the week at plus 550. He's sitting at plus 400. So you got to keep that in mind, that if you're making bets, that you've got to jump on Larson early. The betting public loves him. And while I would prefer Larson in the 550 horsepower package because he's just been a monster, he's had good finishes year to date so far in this package. You go back to Phoenix, he finished 7th. He was constantly running some of the fastest speeds, but he had a couple of pit road penalties that really ruined his day. He had a 5th at Martinsville, and then he had an 18th at Richmond. That was a bit of a disappointing race, but so far he's done well in this package. You look at what he's done at Darlington. Of course, missed the 3 races last year. You go back to 2019, finished 2nd. You go back to 2018, finished 3rd. And this is kind of the synthesis glimmer of hope that you can have with Logano. 2018 is the last race that we had here before NASCAR decided, okay, we need to split up the short tracks from the large tracks and have them have different packages. In that 2018 race, when it was just the Gen 6 car with the body modifications that they had at the time, he led over 200 laps in that race. So we're getting Larson starting 14th. Yes, he's the most expensive driver. He has a hair of place differential, but you're paying this much for him because of his probability to lead. We've seen him lead here tons of times before. I want to say that he's a guy that you should consider, but I don't know if he's a guy that, like, if you're building a single entry or a 3 max lineup that you want to get in every lineup. Like, if you're doing single entry, I don't think I'm going to play Larson. Like, if ownership is going to be anything like what is happening with his betting number, I think the field is going to be going over on Larson. And while I think that he's plenty capable of a top 5 finish and, definitely running down some fastest laps as he's hugging the wall, I don't know about his probability to lead here, especially with how popular he's going to be. And I'm going to be looking down the board, like I talked about, at Logano, at Hamlin, at Truex instead.
Let's talk about Brad Keselowski on the pole. Obviously, he can jump out and get some of those laps led right at the start. But as you think about as this race progresses, kind of what do you see as the upside to Brad Keselowski at 10,000 on DraftKings and 12.5 over on FanDuel?
Right. It's been really, really odd here. Like if people will look at the race sheets and they look at what the pole sitter has done over the last 5 races, it hasn't been fantastic. Finishes of 20th, 39th, 13th, which was Brad in this race last year in May, and then 21st and 10th. I mean, we're talking about one top 10 finish out of 5 races. Now, 41 laps led, that's a favorable number with 17.6 fastest laps, but the number that's got to alarm you are the averages. 22.85 DraftKings points for the pole sitter over the last 5 races. I mean, and combine that with what has been the trend of the pole sitter this year and going back to 2020, it scares me to death to play Keselowski. However, here's the thing: Keselowski as a pole sitter, he's pretty stable. In this race last year, he ended up leading 80 laps, had 26 fastest laps, and he probably would have been in our optimal lineup, but he fell back 13, so he lost 12 place differential points. And then, of course, that you take away a top 5, a top 10 finish, and what that equates to for his finishing position points. He still ended his day with 52 DraftKings points, but if he just would have held on to the top 5 position, he definitely would have ended up with a score closer to, probably 60, 65, maybe even 70 points, and that probably would have put him within range to be in the optimal lineup. But he didn't do himself any favors. But regardless, the point is that I think we can trust Brad as a potential dominator because of how efficient he is as a pole sitter in his history. He's got a good pit crew. Won that 2018 race that we were talking about before the different splits and packages. I don't know if Brad's going to be my highest own potential dominator, especially when I'm probably 2 head over heels for the Joe Gibbs drivers, but I think I like their prospects a bit more than Brad per se, but he's definitely a guy that should be in your player pool as a potential dominator.
Now, when you want to get access to all of our ownership projections, player projections, our premium Slack channel, and so much more, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. Gives you access to everything we have in terms of DFS sports over at Awesemo.com. And if you just want a NASCAR weekly pass, give you access to ownership projections, the top driver tool, and more. You can sign up for a Awesemo Plus NASCAR weekly pass for $9.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Just go to awesemo.com/join to sign up today. Now, looking at some other drivers here in that top tier, you briefly mentioned a little bit about Logano. You mentioned about Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex. So let's talk a little about Denny Hamlin, starting 7th. So a little bit of room there in terms of place differential. 10,600 on DraftKings, 14,000 over on FanDuel. If you want to play on Super Draft, as a champion, he's a 1.5, but in that flex, he's only a 1.
Yeah, Hamlin. I think that Hamlin's probably going to be our top lap leader come Sunday. I mean, this is just a amalgamation of what he's done at Darlington. Won here plenty of times. He ended up winning the second of the back-to-back races here last May. You look at what he's done in the 750 horsepower package. Now, admittedly in the race sheets, it was imperfect. Me trying to find numbers to put side by side with the past 5 Darlington races. I was trying to find, okay, there's got to be a way to combine tracks that are near the distance of Darlington. We're talking about mile-long races. But then again, Dover's the only one that has the banking and the tire wear. But if we wanted to talk about distance, we could add in Phoenix. We could add in New Hampshire. I added in the last 6 races, 750 horsepower package, mile-long track, tire wear included. And with Hamlin, 6 races, averaging 76.5 fast laps led, 40.5 fastest laps over that tenure, 4 top 5s, 116 driver rating. He's been phenomenal in this package. He's been phenomenal at this track. I think it's just a perfect marriage of 2 storms that should combine for Hamlin to be probably the top lap leader.
Martin Truex Jr. starting fourth. He's 10,300, 13.5 over on FanDuel. And Joey Logano starting 12th. So obviously some room there for plays a place differential, 11,100 DraftKings, 10,000 over on FanDuel. Before we move on to tier number 2, what's kind of your thoughts on those drivers?
Yeah, when we talk about Truex this season, believe that he either led the most or the second most laps at Richmond. That still turned into a fifth place finish, but then won Martinsville, and then he won at Phoenix. So the 3 times that we've run 750 horsepower package this season, he's got 2 wins and a top 5. His Martinsville number, not his Martinsville, his Darlington numbers aren't that fantastic when you look at his average finish. But the thing that a lot of people miss the forest for the trees for is that he's actually averaging, among drivers who have raced in all 5 of these past 5 races here at Darlington, he's averaging the most laps led and the most fastest laps. It's just been whatever goofy scenarios at the end that haven't transpired into top finishes. So, expecting him to continue to run as hot and as good as he had in this package this year, combined with what he's been able to do to get out front, to run fast at this track with a little bit better starting position than Denny Hamlin. I mean, he's definitely on the board to be a potential dominator. And plus, if we've been paying attention to what matters, the weather should impact our decisions. This is going to be a hot race on Sunday. When it's hot and it's slick, that plays into Truex's wheelhouse. And if I'll be checking the forecast on Weather Underground, AccuWeather, whatever I can look at to figure out what the clouds are going to do. Of course, that can change, so it's not going to be a hard and fast rule. But if I can get some sort of indication that this is going to be a mostly sunny day, then that might lead me to making Truex my highest owned driver.
Of course, our tier number 2 drivers are the drivers that are in the 9K and 8K range. So we've got Kyle Busch starting 3rd, Kevin Harvick starting 2nd, Alex Bowman starting 19th, Chase Elliott 6th, Ryan Blaney 16th, William Byron 5th, Christopher Bell 21st, Kurt Busch 17th, Eric Jones 26th, Eric Amarola starting 27th. Mentioned a question already in the chat saying, can you play Kevin Harvick?
Yes, you can, but only in tournaments. I want to believe. I mean, I was really excited about us, and that tells you exactly where we are with Kevin Harvick right now. When a second place finish got me pretty excited for Kevin Harvick compared to the guy that won 8 races last year. I mean, it's just been a complete flip flop of 2 seasons. But Harvick has run so stinking well here. He won 2 of the 3 Darlington races last year, and the past 5 races, his worst finish is 4th, averaging 40.2 laps led, 23.8 fastest laps over those 5 races. He has probably been the best driver. We know when it comes to high tire wear venues that, I mean, Harvick knows exactly what to do. He has always excelled at places like Atlanta, run well at Dover. Coming in here in Darlington, he won 2 of those 3 races. The numbers say that he should be on our board. It's just, what kind of setup are they gonna throw at this track? I tweeted it out earlier this week, just looking at the numbers. And God, when you look at all of the 2021 races, you remove the Daytona Road Course, you remove the 2 super speedway races, 0 laps led, 6.6 fastest laps per race. Those kind of averages are not what I want from a potential dominator. And that scares me to think, even though Harvick starts 2nd, that we could once again be paying nearly $10,000 for a guy that's going to get you maybe 5 to 6 fastest laps and a top 5 finish. And at that price, I don't want to pay that for Harvick. So yeah, you want to take a shot that they're going to do something setup wise, go off their notes last year, go off of what they did at 750 horsepower package races last year, and come up with something off the wall, and maybe it sticks and Harvick can beat Keselowski off the initial green flag and possibly be an early dominator in the first segment. I mean, heck yeah. I like that, but in cash games, if your idea is to stack the front row with Keselowski and Harvick, no, we're not playing that game. Harvick is not safe for cash until we see some consistency out of him that includes wins.
There is one driver in this tier that I highlighted in my sheet here, and it's all because of a difference in salary between DraftKings and FanDuel. And I would say when I was putting my sheet together, I thought I sorted wrong. I was like, hold on, did I do something wrong with my sorting? So I go in DraftKings app, go in FanDuel app. Nope, it's the right one. William Byron starting fifth, 8,800 on DraftKings, 11,500 on FanDuel, Super Draft, 1.05 and a 1.6 as champion. Over on Super Draft, he's got the same multiplier as Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., and Kevin Harvick.
Yeah, I have to think that FanDuel and Super Draft are just way overvaluing this run of top 10 finishes that Larson has given you. And when you take out the Bristol Dirt Race, I mean, the last time that he finished outside of the top 10 was his 33rd place finish at the Daytona Road Course. I mean, you've got to go all the way back to February to find the last time that this kid didn't finish in the top 10. At those prices, you need laps led. You need laps led out of Byron if you're going to pay off 11,500 for him. I mean, that is preposterous. I can't envision a scenario on FanDuel where Alex Bowman at $500 less, starting 19th, doesn't outscore Byron. I mean, just simply, Byron has such little appeal to me as a potential lap leader. I mean, you look at those last 6 races, the 750 horsepower package, mile or greater tracks, and Byron is averaging 0.7 laps led. I mean, we are not talking about a lot of lap leading potential here. Unless you are just going balls to the wall, trying to get really crazy with your builds on FanDuel, trying to find a way to really be different, and you honestly think that Byron can be a potential dominator, I don't think there's any way that you can play him. And even at 8,800 on DraftKings, you just need you need so many different scenarios out of the guys around him to go bad and Blaney to pick up some spare dominator points in the process. I mean, I really cannot make a case for him. If he was $1,000 cheaper, and then he was kind of in a similar spot to what Matty D was in last week, where he found his way into the optimal lineup with his 5th place finish, then yeah, that makes sense. But at this near $9,000 salary, no way.
When you look at a majority of the drivers in this tier are drivers that are outside of the top 15. Bowman starting 19th, Blaney starting 16th, Bell starting 21st, Kurt Busch starting 17th, Jones 26th, Amarola 27th. So we've got some place differential points sitting there.
Yeah. Upside wise, I think my favorite out of these guys that are all kind of priced together would be Christopher Bell, just simply because I think he's got the most potential to possibly lead, if not win, just because, we're talking about 3 top 10 finishes in the 750 horsepower package. What he's done here, he has taken over Eric Jones's car. Eric Jones, when he was racing for Joe Gibbs, his finishes here were 4th, 5th, 8th, 1st, and 8th. So, I mean, that's a pretty good car to take over. His crew chief is Kyle Busch's former crew chief. Kyle never won here over the last 5 races, but he did have 4 top 10 finishes with look at that, 23.6 laps led in the process. So I mean, it's a combination of the car, it's a combination of the driver, the crew chief. I think a lot of things are lining up for Christopher Bell. So he's probably got the highest ceiling out of all of these guys. Kurt Busch, him and Eric Jones, they're hands off. Kurt Busch is still priced up way too much. We see Kurt running well, but then by the end of the race, he's not running well and he's not paying off value. Eric Jones is a complete stay away. I don't get either of these prices on DraftKings or FanDuel. He's getting priced up like this Richard Petty equipment. is mid-tier. And from what we've seen so far from Eric Jones in this 43, it's not even mid-tier. It's bordering on being Rick Ware equipment. And you can't pay $8,000 for that for a guy that might pick up 4 or 5 place differential spots. And then I'm going to say your safest out of all of these is Almirola at 7,500 on FanDuel, 8,000 on DraftKings. Yeah, his finishes have not been good, but I think from what you've seen so far, he's a driver that's doing better in this package versus the other package. He's run well here. No finish worse than 17th over his last 5 races in those 3 races last year, 9th, 7th, and 12th. He's a guy that probably will end up somewhere between 10th and 15th, which probably better suits him for cash.
Before we move on to next year, I want to mention about Chase Elliott starting 6th, 9,200 on DraftKings, 12,000 on FanDuel. Overall Super Draft, a 1.9 multiplier as champion, 1.6 in the flex spots. What's your thoughts about Chase in this race?
Chase is a guy that should be on your board as a potential dominator, not a guy that you're going to have 35, 40%, but maybe 15 to 20%. We're hoping that what happened last week with that 5th place finish at Kansas, it's the start of a little momentum. We always want to jump on Chase when he's about to start on a roll. You look at his last 5 races here, the finishes not that great. 20th, 38th. Now, if you remember, that was the Wednesday night race where he was leading and he got punted by Kyle Busch. Then you've got the 4th place finish, a 19th and a 5th. But in those subpar finishes, his average running position is 8.4, averaging 20.2 fastest laps, 30.2 laps led. So, I mean, he is getting to the front. He's getting you dominator points. He's a guy that I think is going to be off of people's radars because Bowman, $200 more on DraftKings, has place differential. Blaney, $200 less. He has place differential. And then you've got Bell, Busch, Jones, all those guys below him. And then you go up, you've got, okay, maybe I can play Kevin. Maybe I can play Kyle. Maybe I can play Brad. I think Chase might come in under own this week, especially with what he's done in this this package so far. It hasn't been fantastic, but we know last year, I mean, in the 750 horsepower package, he was fantastic. He, whether you want to say hook or by crook, he did definitely outrace his equipment by the numbers. But regardless, he found his way to wins, and he put down pretty spectacular numbers, especially in regards to dominator points. So I think Elliott, and especially that super draft number, that's pretty crazy that you're getting Chase at that much more of a number compared to his own teammate.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Of course, this show is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. With Monkey Knife Fight, you are in charge. Go over to monkeyknifefight.com to sign up today, and be sure to use that promo code Awesemo, as you'll get an instant first match deposit when you sign up with that promo code Awesemo. And that instant first match deposit is up to $100. So sign up today. You can play in their NASCAR contest, player props, more or less on fantasy points. So be sure to check out our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Go to monkeyknifefight.com. Be sure to use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit up to $100. But let's move on to tier number 3. This will be the drivers in the 7K and 6K range. So we got Matty D, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Austin Dillon, Reddick, Newman, Custer, Wallace, Briscoe, Suarez, Buscher, Chastain, and McDowell. Matty D starting 8th, 7,800 DraftKings, 8,200 over on FanDuel.
Oh, I mean, I'm scared to death to play him, but I don't think there's any reason to think that what hasn't been happening in the last couple of weeks just won't continue again this week. I mean, Matty D, ever since Las Vegas, he has just been rolling off top 20 finishes, and then they got better into top 15s. And now we're staring at a couple of back-to-back top 5 finishes here at Talladega and Kansas. Not that either of these are going to translate into Darlington, but the matter of fact is that we've been transitioning between different packages, and Matt just keeps doing better and better and better. I want to say that I worry about Matt in this package, because now that we're here in the 7K and the 6K range, now we're talking about these mid-tier to lower tier teams that don't perform as well in this package. But crap, I mean, Matty D knocked down a 12th and a 9th in this package at Martinsville and Richmond. It's going to scare you to click on this button, and you're going to be saying, okay, crap. I mean, there's so much of an easier path for Almirola, Jones, Stenhouse, for these guys to reach value as opposed to what Matty D needs to do. But the fact is that whatever Matt needs to do, he has been doing it for weeks on end, and there's no reason to think that he won't do it this week.
Stenhouse Jr. was the other driver that I highlighted on my sheet here. We'll get to him in a minute. I want to mention this question from Wyatt about Daniel Suarez, who's starting 15th, 6,700 on both DraftKings and on FanDuel. And Wyatt says, is Daniel Suarez starting too high to be optimal?
Woo. Okay. 6,700 on both sides. I think this can work. He's underpriced enough that what we need for the sake of value, it's not that bad. And I mean, we could easily see a scenario like last week where Suarez was a lap down, but then there was a string of cautions at the end, and before you know it, Suarez is in the top 15, nearly the top 10, and he's making the optimal lineup because of just a little bit of place differential that he got, plus finishing position. Let's just compare him to everybody else in this range on DraftKings. Do I trust Bubba? Not really. I mean, I know that among all these guys at 7K and below, he's got the best equipment. I mean, it's basically Joe Gibbs' stuff, but you look at these finishes year to date. I mean, his best finish is 16th. And that's in this package. So I mean, is Bubba gonna pick up, another 5 to 6 spots at a track that he hasn't really done that well in? Maybe, but I don't know if I want to pay 7K for that. I don't trust Chase Briscoe. Chase ran really well here in the Xfinity Series, but I mean, crap, this rookie season for Briscoe has just been a continual learning experiment for him. Chris Buescher's in the same spot as Suarez, but it's a little bit of a tougher path starting 11th. And then we've got Ross Chastain, who I don't know if Ross is wrecking people to get these finishes, but Ross has kind of just consistently been a top 20 to 15th driver over this span. Comparatively, I think Suarez might, and it's tight. I think Suarez might have a little bit of a higher ceiling, and something that's got to scare you is even in better equipment in Suarez's days here at Darlington, his finishes were not that fantastic. And comparatively, probably what Suarez is driving is about the same to what Chastain has. However, here's the kicker. With this being the 750 horsepower package at a track with steep banking and massive tire wear, we could see wrecks galore, especially if that sun stays out and that track gets hot and slick. Who am I going to trust to not wreck himself or someone else out in the process? I'm going to probably end up taking Suarez over Chastain.
Of course, before we get into Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I do want to tell you a little bit about the Awesemo Hall of Fame. You've heard us talk about it, where you got to rock that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com avatar to download that image. As I look at some of the latest entries into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, MWP taking down nice little $6,000 over in the slam dunk over there on No House Advantage. Of course, we have those No House Advantage props free for you every single day. Also, another one in the NHL, Elway's Army taking down third there over in hockey. Also, Toy Sniper coming in, winning $900 when he only wagered $8. Man, what an awesome return on investment that one is there. Also, a solid 89 getting in that NBA piggy bank as well. Congrats to you. And of course, download that Awesemo profile. Tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF on Twitter, and you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 entries. So congratulations. Of course, I know Team of B is the one that's always looking at all those wins that we get every single day, as be sure to rock that Awesemo avatar. So I mentioned about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So he was only one of 2 drivers that I highlighted just because of pricing. 7,600 on DraftKings. But the reason I highlight him is 5,500 over on FanDuel.
With FanDuel, I mean, it's almost like they've taken the approach that Stenhouse has just been raking up for weeks on end. And to be honest, this is only 2 weeks of Stenhouse with bad finishes. You start at Daytona, work your way forward until Talladega, and Stenhouse has been, I want to say, probably overachieving in this equipment. I mean, it had been basically top 20, top 15 finishes, including that second place finish at the Bristol Dirt Race, just race after race after race. But then you've got the wreck out at Talladega, and then he gets caught up in a wreck by no fault of his own when Christopher Bell got loose last week, and he finishes in 34th place. And remember, that wreck was caused by the stupid caution flag because of the tire. If that caution flag doesn't happen, those two probably never meet on the track. But I digress. I think if you're scared of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. because of the last 2 weeks, you're overreacting. This has been a guy that for the season has been running really well, really consistent in the 3 races in this package. He's been a top 12, a top 15 driver in each race. If that's what he's going to offer you Sunday, then I mean, heck, that makes plenty of sense to get that guy in cash. It makes plenty of sense to get him in tournaments. Depending on how you go, FanDuel should just be a 2-dominator build, whether you go cash or tournaments. There's a good chance that Stenhouse is as absolutely low as you need to go in terms of your lineup on FanDuel at 5,500.
Of course, is there anybody else in this tier that sticks out to you that you believe is a good cash or GPP play that we haven't talked about?
In the light of what we've talked about with Matty D, about consistency, getting a top 10 finish, sneaking his way into the optimal lineup because of that, I can make the case for Austin Dillon, and I can make that case for Tyler Reddick as well. It's just a simple, when these guys start up front, they generally do a pretty good job of holding their position. You just need them to do that, since it's not a super long race. It's not a 400 or a 500 lap race. I think the chances of them, falling back late in the race are minimized. So I like the chances better of a Dillon, of a Reddick sneaking their way into the optimal lineup with a 5th through a 10th place finish. Other than that, I mean, this goes back to this package. I don't know if I really like the upside of Newman starting 20th, because he feels like maybe a 16th to a 17th place driver at best. We've talked about the problems with Bubba, talked about the problems with Briscoe, what you need out of Suarez, what you need out of Buescher, and what you need out of Chastain. All these guys, you just need them to just not get lapped, hold to their position, and then maybe they sneak away with a top 15 finish by the end of the race.
Of course, so we have 10 drivers in the final tier number 4. So these are the drivers that are under $6,000. And I'll mention a question from Wyatt and mention about some drivers that are down here saying, are JJ Yeley and Quinn Hoff and BJ McLeod, are they valuable so that you can fit in 3 dominators, or is that too much of a stretch?
No, it's not too much of a stretch. When we're trying to get in 3 dominators, it necessarily means that we're going to be fiddling around with these drivers down here. I mean, it's just the consequences of trying to nail the top three drivers. And yeah, I mean, if you want to play around with these guys, I can make the case for Yaley. He's raced here the last 5 races. While he doesn't have a single lead lap finish, he has finished all 5 of these races. I mean, there's half of the drivers in this field that can't say that for themselves. His worst finish is 32nd. His best finish is 28th. In this car, that's probably what you're looking at. But at 4,800, that can work. BJ McLeod, his finishes, they're a whole lot less appetizing. But the thing that I like about McLeod is that he's getting tons of track time this week. He's racing in the truck race tonight. He's going to race in the Xfinity race tomorrow, and then he's going to come back and race this Cup race on Sunday. So whatever information there is to glean just by simple track time that these other guys aren't getting because there's no practice, McLeod's going to have it. Now, of course, he's going to have it in three different vehicles, but just the fact that he's going to end up having more track time than practically anybody else in this field, that could lend itself to being beneficial.
Of course, one of the great benefits of being an Awesemo Plus member, I told you a little bit about the weekly pass that we have over at Awesemo.com, is you do get access to our premium Slack channel where if you got any NASCAR questions, you can hop into that NASCAR channel, talk to Phil about roster construction, of course, or any other channels that we have over there. We have office hours. I'll be doing office hours tomorrow afternoon for the UFC card before I do live before lock. So that's one of the great tools that we have when you're an Awesemo Plus member. Of course, sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass today, awesemo.com/join to see the packages that we do have available there. Mentioning about some other drivers in this range, and this is all place differential. So we got Priest starting 29th, LaJoie 30th, Yaley 31st, Alfredo 25th, Davidson 36th, Bilicki 37th, and we've talked, and Cody Ware 33rd. We've already talked about Yaley, McLeod, and Quinn Hoff. Where is the lowest you can go in this range? Like, is there a cutoff line for you?
If you're doing a 2-dominator build, you should not be below Ryan Preece on DraftKings. And quite frankly, if you didn't play Stenhouse because you couldn't afford him, then probably Preece is as absolutely low as you need to go on FanDuel. In a race with fewer than 300 laps, there is no way that the likes of LaJoie, Haley, Alfredo, Davis, and Bilicki, blah, 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 that any of these guys are going to end up being optimal simply because they're not going to have the finishing position points that you need to get to an optimal lineup. But here on DraftKings, if you're doing a 2-dominator build, I really don't think you need to get below Preece. I hate to beat this dead horse, but I keep coming back to what the 750 horsepower package does to these cars. Since we're only dealing with 300 laps, you definitely can get away with a 2-dominator build. And if when I'm building those lineups, I find myself saying, okay, down here in this range, if I'm at 6,300 and below, needing to fill out the last driver, do I want to take a stab on Buescher, Chastain, McDowell, hoping that they just hang on to that lead lap all night? Or do I want to take a shot on Preece, who has legitimate place differential, who can probably find his way to a 18th through a 22nd place finish and end up outscoring the rest of these guys because of his place differential? And when you get below Preece with LaJoie, Haley, Alfredo, they just don't have the same place differential upside that I believe Preece has. He'll have a better car than the rest of these guys in this punt area range. 4 races here at Darlington. He has a last place finish that was mechanical, but then everything else has been 17th, 20th, 22nd. His average finish at this length of track in this package, 22.7. I mean, that's leagues better than what anybody else in this range can offer you. So, if you're going to do 3 dominators, you're going to find yourself down in the punt range for sure. And I can make the case for Yaley. I can make the case for McLeod. If you want to go up a little bit further, we can talk about LaJoie and Haley's prospects. But if you're doing a 2-dominator build, I think once you've hit Ryan Preece, you do not go any farther.
I found myself in my cash lineup in this range last weekend. It did not work out for me. So when I was trying to go with some of those massive salaries there. But of course, if you do have any questions, something we have not gotten to throughout the show, you can leave those right now, whether it's in our premium Slack channel or also right here on YouTube. Of course, be sure to subscribe to subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube. We got a ton of great shows for you each and every day. Start off your morning with some NBA and MLB talk. And of course, tomorrow we got you covered for all the sports that will be going on. Do want to mention a question that it related to the 750 horsepower, saying what tracks ran the 750 horsepower low downforce package so far this year?
We've only got 3. It's been Phoenix, it's been Martinsville, and it's been Richmond. NASCAR has generally saved this package for everything a mile or shorter, and then they've played with it at the road courses. But generally, you can always think of short courses, high horsepower, big courses, low horsepower. So it is a bit of a wrench that NASCAR is throwing at us by finding its way in the middle at Darlington, which is 1.33 miles. So it's not necessarily an intermediate track, but it's definitely not a short track. But we're going to use the short track package here. If you are wanting to use numbers from the closest corollary track using this package that I can find, go back to last year. Look at the doubleheader at Dover. Dover is a mile in length, but it's got similar tire wear. It's got similar banking, if not even more extreme banking. So I think that might be your closest 1-to-1 if you're looking for something to compare last year's driver expectations to this race.
In terms of some other things maybe we haven't touched on throughout the show of, that you're looking at developing your rosters, is there something we haven't touched on to this point?
Oh, not necessarily. I do think that something I am really going to have to struggle with Sunday morning when I start to finalize my rosters is just how comfortable I'm going to get with these drivers in the 7 and 6K range. If this was a 400 or a 500 lap race, then I mean the punts are definitely on the board, and you might even have to play 2 of them in some of your builds. But with this being fewer than 300 laps, I'm trying my best to stay away from that range. So it necessarily means I'm in the 7K, I'm in the 6K range. So I've got to project for myself. I've got to go back to Alex's projections. I've got to look and see what he's doing with the probabilities for scores and being a dominator. And of course, ownership is going to definitely be king in this range. But I've got to figure out just who do I really think has potential for top 10s, top 15s, staying on the lead lap out of this range. I think that's really where your money's going to be made on Sunday.
Sincere Miller asks, do we need to worry about crashes here like Daytona?
This can be a place that can be a bit of a wreck fest. Generally, this race has always been run at night the last couple of years. This always tended to happen around Labor Day, commemorating with that weekend. It was a Sunday night race, and when you have a night race, the grip increases. Even for a place like this, you get a little extra grip. With this being such a high tire wear venue, during the middle of the day, the forecasts are pegged in the mid 80s. This could become really hot. This could become really slick, and it could, you could see a lot of wrecks, and that will. I think that is the one thing to keep in mind is that if you're determined to build a 3 dominator build and you've got these punt plays, you're definitely going to need attrition to make those punt plays viable. Because as more guys wreck, these guys will continue to move up the field, picking up place differential in the process. So, I think really the prospects of this race for the guys like Yaley, McLeod, whoever else you want to name off that's 5,500 and below, you're going to need attrition for these guys to really kind of hit that optimal range for your 3 dominator builds. But mean, I think the circumstances are there where it could happen.
JJ asks, he goes, what should we be looking for when building FanDuel lineups, finishing position, or place differential?
I think it's because of the 750 horsepower package. I think you are going to worry about finishing position. I've got the Real Heroes 400 race data posted in the race sheets, and people can look at that. It's got all of the numbers that you would ever hope to find with the fastest laps, the laps led, DK, FanDuel points, and then the optimal from DraftKings and FanDuel. If you look at that optimal lineup from FanDuel, you've got first place, second place, third place, seventh place, and ninth place. And then the drivers that finished seventh and ninth. Seventh place driver picked up 22 spots, and the ninth place driver picked up 25 spots. So even those drivers that didn't exactly finish, top 5, top 6, they scored enough place differential points to make up for it. I definitely think on FanDuel, you are prioritizing 2 dominators, but then you're trying to project top 5 to top 10 finishes for the rest.
We'll leave on this question. Want to know about Erik Jones's history at Darlington.
When Erik was racing for Joe Gibbs, I mean, he was fantastic. He won here, one of the Southern 500s. Let me pull up his last 10 races here. He raced here 3 years for Joe Gibbs. His finishes in reverse order went 4th, 5th, 8th, 1st, 8th, 5th. So I mean, that's a bunch of really nice finishes for Jones. I believe this was where he got his second Cup victory. But God, the equipment he's in, you can't expect anything close to that. If you want an idea of what you're going to get out of Jones, look at those last 10 races and look up what Bubba did here before.
Of course, this all goes down on Sunday. Appreciate everyone watching us live here on a Friday night. Of course, if you ever do miss the show, get it on replay on YouTube. Also, a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. So that's going to do it for us for this edition of the Awesemo NASCAR Strategy Show. I will talk to you guys tomorrow for UFC Live Before Lock. And be sure to check out our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit of up to $100. Good night, everybody.